A blind man needed a job and heard of a lumber yard hiring. He found his way to the lumber business and asked for the manager to interview him for the job. The lumber yard manager told the blind man it was impossible for him to work here. The blind guy said, "Test me, and if I pass, will you hire me?" The manager brought a length of board to the blind man, and he took a big whiff, smelling the board up and down, then said, "Pine, 2x4, 3 feet long." The manager was amazed at his accuracy, but not satisfied, so he got another board, and the blind man took a big whiff, smelling the board up and down, then said, "Oak, 2x6, 4 feet long." The lumber manager again was amazed by his accuracy and had to tell his boss, the lumberyard owner, about the blind man's ability. The owner, who happened to be female, didn't believe it, so she walked silently up to the blind man and hiked up her skirt. The blind man took a big whiff, smelling up and down, then said, "Tuna boat with the shithouse door open." 2. A mental hospital was getting overcrowded, so doctors created a test to weed out those who are genuinely troubled and those who can be released back into public life. They emptied all the water from the swimming pool and patience to form a kiowa to the diving board. "Whoever can jump in the pool and can swim a whole length will be free to go," called out the head doctor. Immediately, all the patients ran to the diving board and jumped in one by one, each one landing hard on the floor below. Amongst the shouting, one patient stood back, chuckling to himself. Assuming they found someone who may no longer need help, the doctors approached the man and asked him why he doesn't jump in. He replied, "You fools thought you could catch me out, but I'm smarter than you think. That water looks far too cold to swim in." 3. Cop was patrolling late at night in a well-known lover's spot, famous for all obscene activities. He sees a couple in a car with the interior light brightly glowing. The cop carefully approaches the car to get a closer look. Then he sees Leonardo DiCaprio behind the wheel, reading a popular culture magazine. He immediately notices a young woman in the rear seat, crying. Puzzled by this surprising situation, the cop walks to the car and gently raps on the driver's window. DiCaprio lowers his window. Yes, officer?" The cop says, "What are you doing?" DiCaprio says, "Well, officer, I'm reading a magazine." Pointing towards the young woman in the back seat, the cop says, "And her, what is she doing?" The man shrugs. "Sir, I believe she's crying." Now the cop is totally confused. DiCaprio, a young woman in a car at night in a lover's lane, and nothing obscene is happening. The cop asks, "What's your age, man?" DiCaprio says, "I'm 49, sir." The cop asks, "And what's her age?" DiCaprio looks at his watch and replies, "She turned 26, 3 minutes ago." 4. An old mafia boss was at the end of his life. He knew he didn't have much time left to live, and he was getting worried about where he might end up after his death if he did not get absolution for his sins. He had been a very evil person, and he knew that any old village priest would not be able to do the job, so instead he arranged a meeting with the Pope in Rome. The Pope listened to all the sins the mafia boss had committed. "I can give you absolution for your sins," the Pope said, "but let me be honest. It will take a lot of work, and it is going to cost you." The Pope took out his calculator, added the numbers, and answered. $50 million, the Pope said. That was a lot of money to the mafia boss. He had known it was going to be expensive, but he had not expected it to be that expensive. He decided to get another offer, so he arranged a meeting with the Patriarch in Moscow. The Patriarch listened to his sins, nodded, and poured himself another glass of vodka. "I can give you absolution for your sins," he said, But let me be honest. It will take a lot of work, and it is going to cost you. The patriarch took out his calculator, added the numbers, and answered. $20 million, the patriarch said. That was still a lot of money, so the mafia boss decided to get a third offer and arranged a meeting with the chief rabbi in Jerusalem. The chief rabbi listened to his sins and said, I can give you absolution for your sins, no problem. How much will it cost me? The mafia boss asked. The chief rabbi took out his calculator, added the numbers, and answered. $200, he said. The Pope in Rome wanted $50 million, and the patriarch in Moscow wanted $20 million. How can you do it so cheap? The mafia boss asked. Oh, that's easy, the chief rabbi answered. We call it local rates. 6. James Bond walks into a bar. He looks around and takes a seat next to a very attractive woman. He gives her a quick glance and then casually looks at his watch for a moment. The woman notices this and asks, Is your date running late? No, he replies. Q has just given me this state-of-the-art watch. I was just testing it. The intrigued woman says, A state-of-the-art watch? What's so special about it? Bond explains. It uses alpha waves to talk to me telepathically. The lady says, What's it telling you now? Well, it says you're not wearing any panties. The woman giggles and replies, Well, it must be broken because I am wearing panties. Bond smirks, taps his watch, and says, Bloody thing's an hour fast. 7. During the perestroika, in USSR Gorby visits the United States. During the meeting with Reagan in the Oval Office, Reagan boasts how advanced the U.S. technology is. You know I can call from that very phone on my desk to anyone on the world. Do you want to try? Gorbachev. Nice. Can I talk to Satan? Sure, be my guest. Gorbachev picks up the phone and promptly has conversation with the Lord of Lies. Upon departure, he gets a phone bill for $500. Still impressed, he goes back home, gets his vice president, and tells him all phone story. Nothing could be simpler, says his VP, and connects him to the hell straight from Gorbachev's desk. Next morning, his secretary brings a phone bill for half a ruble, less than 10C back in a daze. Gorbachev excited and puzzled. How come we paid 500 in D.C. and 10C in Moscow? Oh, for us, it's a local connection. 8. An old woman is sitting at home one afternoon when the doorbell rings. She opens the door and sees there a man with a collecting tin and a name badge. Good afternoon, madam, he says. I am collecting for the Birdhouse and Restrict Brass Band Instrumental Purchase and Repair Fund. May I ask you for a small donation? Eh? Says the old lady. The man repeats, Good afternoon. I am collecting for the Birdhouse and Restrict Brass Band Instrumental Purchase and Repair Fund. May I ask you for a small donation? Eh? Says the old lady and seems to fiddle with her hearing aid. The man smiles patiently and says, Good afternoon. I am collecting for the Birdhouse and Restrict Brass Band Instrumental Purchase and Repair Fund. May I ask you for a small donation? Eh? She says again. Good afternoon. The man begins, then sighs and spins on his heel, muttering, Screw her anyway, the deaf old bitch. Yes, says the old lady. And you screw your Birdhouse and Restrict Brass Band Instrumental Purchase and Repair Fund. 9. Gareth Southgate goes to the dentist. Dentist. So what seems to be the problem? Gareth. Well, I've been having a bit of trouble eating and drinking. I can't quite figure out what's wrong with my teeth. Dentist takes a quick look inside Gareth's mouth. Dentist. Well, it's quite clear to me that one of your front teeth needs to come out. This one here, dentist, points to a chart, isn't able to function properly. You need to have it extracted. Gareth looks back at the dentist in dismay. No, you can't take that one out. Sorry, that one needs to stay in. Dentist, now a little taken aback. Well, it's very clear to me that if you don't have this tooth removed, you won't ever be able to drink from a cup. Gareth pauses for a moment. I don't care about cups. You're not removing my canine. 10. One winter day, when Ole was ice fishing on the lake, he accidentally got his left foot stuck under the ice for 30 minutes. Eventually, he realized he had developed severe frostbite, and so he paid a visit to Dr. Svensson. Dr. Svensson informed Ole that he would need to have 3 toes amputated. Ole was clearly upset at the news, letting out several "oof das" in a row, so the good doctor tried to console him. Don't worry, Ole. It's not all bad news. As long as Lena doesn't mind, I'm sure you could make a lot of money as a porn star. You betcha. Ole was confused and asked, Really? Yeah, replied Dr. Svensson. It's just like they said about Jan Holmes. Everyone loves a man who's got a foot and a half. 11. Not really a joke, but a story that lined up to a joke months in the making. So here's the story. I got hired at a university as a groundskeeper. In the first 6 months of me working there, I never cracked a smile, never told a joke. I convinced everyone in my department that I was this stoic, all work, no play person. The fact that I'm naturally monotone made it even more convincing, along with me actually being very stoic and cold at times. We were laying out pine straw for an event, and I looked at the person to my left and said, I don't trust artists, to him, without cracking a smile. He looked at me with a confused expression and then got back to work long, and I, a few seconds later, said, Because they're sketchy, and kept a straight face. It took him a while to process it, but then he stood straight up and looked at me as I just got back to work with no smile. Then he said, Wait a minute. Was that a joke, or are you for real? After which I bust out laughing. Not one person I work with accepted it at all, and thought I was dead serious about not trusting artists until I bust out laughing. Call me sick and twisted, but I thought it was the funniest thing I ever pulled on someone. And it wasn't on just one person. It was a joke 6 months in the making. I pulled on my boss and co-workers. 12. 2 men are walking down a swampy road looking for a ride. They hadn't seen a car in over an hour and start making up dares to pass the time. Dude. 1. Hey, you see those little frogs jumping around? Bet you $5 you wouldn't eat one of those. Dude 2, being a macho sort of guy who can't turn down a dare, grabs a little frog, pops it in his mouth, and gulps it down. Dude 1 reaches into his pocket and gives Dude 2 $5. They continue walking for a while. Dude 2. Hey, you know what? I bet you $5 you won't eat a frog. Dude 1, not to be outdone, grabs a frog and eats it whole. Dude 2 gives Dude 1 back his original $5. They continue walking down the road for another 20 minutes when Dude 2 turns to Dude 1 and says, Hold on. Why did we eat them frogs? 13. 2 economists are walking down the road. They pass a cow pie on the side of the road, and Econ 1 says to Econ 2, I'll give you $10,000 to lick that cow pie. The Econ 2, slightly down on his luck, decides to take him up on it. He licks the poo, gets $10,000. They continue down the road and pass another cow pie, and Econ 2 now, with $10,000 burning a hole in his pocket, says, Hey, Econ 1, if you lick that cow pie, I'll give you $10,000. Econ 1, knowing a good deal when he sees one bends down, licks the poo and collects his $10,000. Now a farmer on the side of the road has seen all of this go down and stops them. Are you two idiots? Now you've both licked the cow shit and both of you have the same amount of money you did before? The economists looked at each other and said, yeah, but we increased the GDP by $20,000. 14. A simple misunderstanding. It's the senior prom. There's a girl sitting all alone and no one has asked her to dance all night. She's not a 10, but she's not ugly by any means. Her biggest flaw would be some hair on her upper lip. There's also a guy, a fairly good-looking guy, who hasn't danced all night either. He has a wooden, fake eye. He spies the lonely gal across the room and decides to ask her to dance. Him. Hey, I've noticed you haven't danced all night, and I was wondering if you would like to dance. Her. Excitedly. Would I? Him. Disgusted. Hair lip. Edit. Reworded this sentence to fit with the joke. I've only ever heard this joke verbally, so I was confused on the correct spelling. Edit 2. To all the people saying, it's hair lip. No, that's the joke. Otherwise, the girl's descriptor would be a cleft lip, not hair on her upper lip. I just confirmed it with my uncle, whom originally told me this joke years ago. This joke is not poking fun at a person's physical uniqueness. Rather, it's a play on words. 15. A boy leaves his home in Abilene at 18. He wanders the world to explore cuisines all over. He tries exotic foods from across the world and writes food travel articles for the biggest publications around the world. 20 years later, his father develops cancer, and the boy returns home. His father, proud of his son's achievements, promises him a dinner like he's never had before. The son eats it, marveling at how delicious it was, curious because his father was never much of a cook. After dinner, sitting on the porch watching the sunset, the boy says, "Dad, I've traveled the world, eaten delicacies rarely tasted by outsiders. My palate is so refined, yet I cannot tell what you cooked tonight. What was that meat?" The father pauses, looks out over the plains, and says, "Carry on, my wayward son." 16. A guy goes to a female dentist to have a tooth extracted. She pulled out a large syringe to give an anesthetic shot. "No way! No needles! I hate needles!" the man exclaimed. So she started to hook up the nitrous oxide tank, and the man said, "I can't do the gas thing. Just the thought of having a mask on my face suffocates me." The dentist then asked the patient if he had any objections to taking a pill. "No," he says, "I'm fine with pills." So the dentist gave him 2 little blue pills, and he swallowed them. "What are those?" he asked. "Viagra," she replied. "I'll be damned," said the patient. "I didn't know Viagra worked as a painkiller." "It doesn't," said the dentist, "but it will give you something to hold on to when I pull your tooth." 16. A wife was making a breakfast of fried eggs for her husband. Suddenly, her husband burst into the kitchen. He said, "On a stick! Careful! Careful! I said be careful! You never listen to me when you're cooking! Never! Turn them! Hurry up! Are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? Don't forget to salt them. You know you always forget to salt them. Use the salt! Use the salt! The salt!" The wife stared at him. "What in the world is wrong with you? You think I don't know how to fry a couple of eggs?" The husband calmly replied, "I just wanted to show you what it feels like when I'm driving." 17. A deranged Russian record collector is arrested and interviewed by the KGB. Long KGB. Tell us exactly that happened. Russian. My wife told me she was going to run away with my record collection. KGB. And then? Russian. And then. I went to my shed, got my saw, and I cut off her legs. KGB. But that wasn't all, was it? Russian. No. My wife told me she had been handling my records without gloves. KGB. And then? Russian. And then. I went to my shed, got my saw, and I cut off her hands. KGB. But that wasn't all, was it? Russian. No, my wife insulted my favorite record. She said the 1967 classic I'm a Believer by the Menkes was mindless drivel. KGB. And then? Russian. And then. I saw her face. 18. The ant, wearing old work clothes and boots, is dragging a log. Suddenly he sees the grasshopper passing by wearing a bikini. Ant. Hey, Grassy. Where are you going? Grasshopper. Ah, hello, Ant. I'm heading for the beach. Gonna tan, play some volleyball. Ant. Well, have fun. Whispers to himself. We know the fable. Autumn. Same farm. Rain. The ant, wearing a ragged raincoat and old rubber boots, is dragging a log. The grasshopper passes by, wearing a designer trench coat. Ant. Good day, Grassy. What plans for today? Grasshopper. You too. There is, gala nearby this evening. Gonna hang out, mingle with the elites. Ant. Have fun. To himself. Winter. Snow, same farm. The ant, wearing a ragged sweater and winter boots, is dragging two logs. Suddenly he sees the grasshopper riding a jeep, wearing a brand new winter coat. Ant. So, Grassy, where are you headed today? Grasshopper. Oh, it's been kind of slow lately, so I'm going to this new club nearby. They say all kind of famous philosophers and poets are assembling there today. Homer, Sappho, Aristotle. I think I'll hang around, listen to them, put my mind to work for a bit. Ant. A question, Grassy. Is Aesop going to be there as well? Grasshopper. Yes, from what I heard, he will be. Ant. Well, if you see him, tell him he's a bullshitter. 19. A dad is picking up his son who's unhappily holding a drawing from kindergarten. Dad. Hey, something's happened. Kid. I didn't have the colors that I wanted. Dad. But hey, kudos, it's a piece of art. Always face up, remember that? Kid. Can I ask something you answer honestly? Dad. Yeah, sure. The kid sits in the car, following his dad's cue. Kid. Do you not love me? The dad is caught a little off guard. Dad. Of course I do. I love you more than anything. Kid. Then do you not love Mom? Dad. I love both of you. You two are sharing my love. Daring. Kid. Then why did you just tell me to remember to always face up and told me to sit down, while yesterday in the evening you told Mom to face down and ass up? 20. Two friends are in a casino playing roulette. One of them bets several chips and watches anxiously, while the other just chills out, drinking some tea. She loses, then takes more chips from her pockets and makes a new bet, mumbling, "Can't believe it will happen again." And again, she loses. She nervously opens her backpack, takes out the rest of the chips she has, and bets. She loses a third time and, quite upset, asks her friend to leave with her. "Give me a minute," says the other girl, walking up to the counter. Her friend takes an absurd amount of chips out of her bag and exchanges for money. The duo walks to the door and leaves the casino. Then the one who lost the bets turns to her friend and asks, "Come here. How did you always win so much money?" "Well, the secret to making money is understanding the law of supply and demand," she replies. "How?" "Spill the beans, please," the other begs. "It's very simple." She smiles, replying, "You buy from the factory and sell at the casino." 21. Two friends are walking in the square when they noticed a poker buddy of theirs sitting on a bench waving at them. "Hey, Carson, I am having a terrible headache. It's ruining my day," says the acquaintance. "Do you have any medicine with you?" Carson opens his fanny pack, takes out a pill, and hands it to him. "Here, take this and get some rest. Don't worry. You'll get better." The two friends say goodbye to him and continue walking until a lady, their neighbor, appears in their path. She is sitting on the floor. "I'm glad you're the one coming," says the neighbor. "Tripped? I think I hurt my foot. Do you have anything that will help?" Carson opens his fanny pack, takes out a pill, and hands it to her. "Here, take this and get some rest. Don't worry. You'll get better." They help the lady get to a bank, say goodbye, and continue walking. After another stretch, they meet another acquaintance of theirs, walking a dog that is barking nonstop. "Carson, I can't believe it's you," says the guy, pointing at the dog. "He's very nervous today. Do you have anything for it?" Carson opens his fanny pack, takes out a pill, and hands it to him. "Here, give him this and let him rest for a while. Don't worry, he'll get better." They chat for a while with him, pet the dog, then leave. Further ahead, there is a guy selling hot dogs. He sees the pair coming, and as they pass him, he says, "Carson, what a blessing to see you here. Do you happen to have anything for diarrhea with you?" Carson shakes his head. He and his friend buy 2 hot dogs and go back to walking. "Carson, tell me something," asks his friend. "How come you have medicine for everything, but not for diarrhea?" And he replies, "For everything, my friend. All I have are tranquilizers." 22. Little Johnny is constantly late for school, and what's worse is that he always has a big lie explaining why. The teacher tells the principal that she has had it with his exaggerations. The principal tells her to send Johnny to him the next time he shows up late. He will tell Johnny a lie so big that he will never tell another one, ever. The next day, Johnny shows up 2 hours late. Johnny says, "I was 2 hours early today, so I had time to fish in the pond on my way to school. I caught a 17-pound trout and had to take it home. If I didn't clean it and freeze it, my mom would have been angry. That's why I'm so late." The teacher promptly takes him to the principal's office and explains the story to the principal. The principal tells Johnny about his own trip to school that day. He says, "I was walking to school through the park on the trail today when I heard something behind me. I turned around and was shocked to see a giant grizzly bear behind me. He was 24 feet tall and had 6-inch fangs. He was going to eat me, Johnny." Just then, a little dog ran out from the bushes, jumped up, and attacked the bear. The little dog killed the bear and then ate the whole bear right there in front of me. What do you think of that, Johnny?" Johnny replies, "Oh, yeah, that's my dog Sparky. That's his 3rd bear this week." 23. A worker at a pickle factory had a strange urge. He wanted to stick his dick into the cucumber cutter. The urge grew and grew until he decided to visit a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist concluded that the only way to cure the urge was to actually go ahead and do it. The next day, the worker came home early. His wife asked why. Ashamed, he admitted that he had this urge to stick his dick into the cucumber cutter, went to the psychiatrist who told him to do it. So he went ahead and did it. Consequently, he was immediately fired. In shock, his wife checked whether everything was okay with his dick. Everything was fine, so she asked, "What happened to the cucumber cutter?" Her husband replied, "I think she got fired, too." 24. A couple are visiting a county fair and see a guy offering helicopter rides for $50. The wife asks her husband if they can go for a ride, but he says, "Money is pretty tight, and $50 is $50. We just can't afford it." The next year, the guy is back, offering rides for $50 again. Once again, the wife pleads with him to take a ride, and again, he replies, $50 is $50. The pilot overhears the couple arguing over money and says, "I'll take you for a ride for free if you can stay silent the whole time, but if you yell, it will be $50. They agree and go for the ride. The pilot decides to give them the ride of their lives, so they'll have to yell. He goes as fast as possible, does loop-de-loops, buzzes as close to the power lines as possible, and flies as high as possible. Before finally landing, the couple remains silent. The pilot looks back and sees just the husband in the back. He yells, "Where is your wife?" And the guy says, "Oh, she fell out about a minute into the ride." The pilot screams, "Why the hell didn't you say anything?" And the guy replies, "Hey, $50 is $50. If you enjoyed this video and want more laughs, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell icon to stay updated with our latest jokes. Join our community of joke lovers and never miss a punchline. See you in the next video.